Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am so happy you're here, and I just want to start off this video by acknowledging how much my channel has already grown in the past couple months, and I really appreciate you guys for being here. I love to see all your comments, and I reply every time if I can. I haven't really had any trouble with that yet, but yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here, and welcome back. I also wanted to mention too, in case you didn't know, I do have a website where I sell my soap. So if you really like my soap making videos, you can find those soaps on my website at lhsoaps.com. I'll be linking it in the description below. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you can get a 10% off coupon. And it's just a little shameless plug, but I've been making soap for like 20 years and I've been selling it off and on. I'd really like to kind of make it more of a steady thing, because I love making soap and I do it all the time and I have so much here. So, if you're interested in any of that, you'll see it on the website. Anyway, today's video, I did want to talk about, or I wanted to expand on my previous video on the self-publishing process. Sorry, I'm just adjusting this. The self-publishing process. So the first one, I had like 4 steps to my process that I did. And I wanted to just expand upon that. And, everybody's journey is different. It's not, there's no hard and fast rule to this, but this is just kind of what I've been doing since I started. And just as a little recap, the first, I guess the main takeaway from that is to just write the thing. But there are other things in there, like deciding whether or not to create an LLC and doing your research and stuff like that. So from that, I wanted to share that as far as like writing the thing, I had this little epiphany the other day during the Perfect Your Process Summit that was hosted by Autocrat and Plotter. And nobody really said this directly, but there was a talk that talked about like fast writing, basically. And I had this epiphany, and I'm sure it sounds really stupid to some people that already knew this, but for me, it's like when you are in this stranglehold of like wanting to write, but then going back and editing, it can really put a damper on your progress. So in this particular talk, it was just kind of around the 0 draft. So again, I'm just expanding on step 4 from the previous video. So when you're just writing the thing, basically, it's kind of like a stream of consciousness. So you have the story idea in your head. You kind of know where, unless you're a pantser, which, I'm kind of a hybrid, a pantser and a plotter. So I'm a plantser. But I used to be just a pantser, and sometimes you just, take the story in whatever direction. When you're world building, it's a little harder to do that because you do have to plan, the world and like the characters in it. You can still pants that process, but I feel like, to have a very solid story, you probably need to have some planning in there on top of that. So with me, I have this series where I have started developing it a long time ago, but I'm just now writing it down. And I did get analysis paralysis, so that is the bad side of planning. So I built this world, and like there's a lot of things that I'm not using that I built. So I think, it comes to a point where you have to, build to a certain degree and then just write the thing, right? So when you're writing it, for me, I did have a little outline, just a small outline. So nothing like planning worthy, in my opinion. It was just a character A does this, character B does that, yada, yada, yada. Event A, event B. So my epiphany came when I was, I've been struggling to write this thing, and I have a due date. So I have to submit it to my editor in less than a month now. And I am kind of under the gun. So I have about 54,000 words, which is a decent size. It's about the same size as Metaxysm back there. But I'm aiming for like 90 to 100,000 words. It could be 80, it's up there. So I have a lot left to go before I turn it into my editor. And to me, that's even before I do any of the editing. So here's the thing. I got really stuck going back and editing. And then, you're still going back, and ultimately, here's the takeaway. Let me stop my rambling here. Here's the takeaway. Just write a stream of conscious. So I know where my characters are going. I just had one document. So I had my Act 1 and Act 2, or half of Act 2, kind of set up already. So I was stuck in Act 2. So I'm taking one document and I'm just writing down like my main character is going to do this, and his friend is going to do that, and yada, yada, yada. And then if I come up with a good idea while I'm writing the stream of consciousness, maybe I'll write a bit of dialogue, but you're basically just writing this. And this is what a lot of people call the zero draft. So the zero draft is not going to make a ton of sense to an outside person. So if I were to just send this out to somebody, they'd be like, what is this chicken scratch? It looks like you were just taking notes during a lecture of class, and that's kind of what it is. You're just kind of writing down your ideas in a logical sequential order, expanding on some stuff. So it's not just an outline, it's like an outline plus, let me put it that way. So I was able to, in 2 days, basically finish my stream of consciousness. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. From middle of Act 2 to the end of my book. So that's a great thing. So now I'm going back and fleshing it out. So I have, a paragraph that discusses my story B character is doing this with my main character. And then I was able to flesh that out into 6 pages. So that's pretty significant. And that was just one paragraph that I had done in my zero draft, if that makes sense. So anyway, now I'm getting to a point where I'm doing my first draft of that part. I'm not really touching the first half of my book because that's kind of a mess of draft 0, draft 1, draft 2, just kind of mixed together. I need to go back and do that. So that brings me to my final first point, 7 minutes into this video, of step 5, I guess, as we continue from the previous video, is just edit the thing. So once you have your, I would say draft 1 complete. So not the draft 0, which I was just talking about with the stream of consciousness. You still have to go in and flesh that out. And that's kind of the first step in editing, but I'm talking about a real edit. So go back, use your writer brain and edit, grammatically, do these plot points make sense? Go back to your first chapters and be like, oh, I forgot I mentioned that, maybe add in a little bit later. So you're kind of just if you imagine a sculpture and you're just taking the tools to carve out the main idea of the shape, that's your draft 0. Your draft 1 is you're getting in with the more refined tools, and you're kind of maybe you're doing a bust and you're shaping the nose or something like that, or you're shaping the eyes. And then your draft 2 might be taking an even finer tool and putting in the little details of the skin or, whatever, hair or whatever like that. And then once you're satisfied with all of that, I highly recommend, I write this down because I ramble. I highly recommend using Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly. So both of them have a free version, but there is a paid version that gives you unlimited access to the tools. I currently use both, which it's a little overkill, but I have the free version of Pro Writing Aid, and I do have an annual subscription to Grammarly, but I may switch that up later. I really don't know, because I do like Grammarly because you can put it on your phone too, and if you're texting somebody, it'll grammatically correct you when you're texting somebody too, which can be annoying if you use a lot of slang and shorthand, but I digress. Anyway, so Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly will really help proofread your text, and it also will give you suggestions on how to structure your sentence a little bit better, but don't take that as gospel, because a lot of these programs are meant to be grammatically correct, and a lot of times your dialogue is not going to be correct, and there's made up words that you have that aren't going to register in there, or they're going to flag it as wrong, but I would use it as just a general tool to clean up your prose, basically. And then what I do is I have an AutoCrit membership. Again, this is another paid membership, and you do not have to do this by any means, but for me, it's kind of like a pre-editing process. I really love AutoCrit. They do have monthly subscriptions, and they also have annual, and then I don't know if they offer it right now, but they do occasionally offer a lifetime subscription, which is what I have. So I paid for that last year. And if you decide you want to do something like that, it is kind of like a pre-editing, send it to your editor, check. You can sign up for a monthly subscription, which I don't know what the cost is of that. It's not that expensive. You can just do 1 month, go through your manuscript, and then cancel your membership, and then you get the benefit of using the AutoCrit, but just make sure you download your manuscript before you cancel. So anyway, there's that. also, I did want to mention, and I'm not being paid by Autocrit by any means. I just really love the platform. They have they will offer sometimes an annual class pass. So they offer a lot of classes that you can take. And if you pay for that, you get unlimited access to all the courses that they offer throughout the year. I did not sign up for that, and I kind of regret it because there's a lot of classes that would have really helped me with this, building this next story that I'm writing. But I mean, it's okay. Maybe next year. We'll see. We'll see how this year treats me. But anyway, so step 5, just to recap, is just to edit the thing. So go through, make all your edits, and clean it up as best as you can. And then that leads me into step 6, which is to hire a professional editor. I can't express how important this step is. There are a lot of people that are on a budget and they do want to produce a book and publish it. And they're on this very tight budget. The editor, aside from marketing, but the editor is probably the most expensive part of the process, depending on how long your manuscript is and what kind of editing that you're looking for. If you want a developmental edit, that is the most expensive that you could do. But a developmental edit basically is just looking for plot holes in your story, making sure everything makes sense, logistically and all that stuff. If you already did your due diligence in that, like with Autocrit or, your previous editing steps, you don't need to hire somebody for a developmental edit. But then there's the copy edit, and then sometimes you can get an editorial review. Am I saying that right? I don't know. There's so anyway, a copy edit sometimes can run you anywhere from 2 cents per word to 3 cents per word, maybe a little cheaper depending on who you ask. With that being said, if you're looking at let me just tell you, with Metaxysm was around 56,000 words. It cost me $1,500 to hire an editor. And that was a copy edit and an editorial review. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I apologize. I'll pop it up on the screen what the correct thing is. But anyway, that cost me $1,500. But that also included a Reedsy fee because I hired her through Reedsy. If you hire somebody through Fiverr, or maybe you know somebody, you could probably get a cheaper rate. But ultimately, you are paying somebody to go line by line through your manuscript. And I don't think it's unreasonable to pay somebody for their time, especially if they're using 4 weeks of their time to go through your manuscript. But my point is, I do think it's very, very important to hire an editor. You may be able to get away with this, and I do have kind of an anecdote about some of the manuscripts that I've read that I feel like did not use an editor. And if they did, shame on that editor. But anyway, that's a whole different video. But anyway, so that's step 6. So step 5, edit it yourself. Step 6, hire an editor. So after step 6, once you submit your manuscript for your editor, it'll take some time. And depending on how quick your editor is, I had a very professional lady that did mine, and she's been an editor for 20 years, so she's very accustomed to this process. She turned around Metaxysm, I think, in 2 weeks, but I don't think that's typical. I think, my editor for this one that I've already booked for my fantasy series, she's going to take 4 weeks. And I appreciate that. Just take your 4 weeks, take your time, do it right. That's what I like. Not to say that the lady that did Metaxysm did not do it right, because she did a great job. I'm just saying, it will take time to do this. So while you're waiting for your manuscript, I would not just sit around. That's where step 7 comes in, and that is working on your branding. So if you want to be a successful, so this is what I did, because I really want this to be my full-time job eventually. I don't know if it'll happen anytime soon, but it is something that I would like to do. So while my manuscript is in her hands, I was working on a website. I was working on a newsletter. There were all kinds of different things. And these are all things that you can research on YouTube as well. So for me, it was basically a website and a newsletter, and brainstorming ideas for reader magnets, things that I can offer for free, and all that sort of stuff. So that will take time too. You definitely want to do that, and then get on social media. I have a Facebook that I don't use very often, and Instagram. I do have a TikTok that I also don't use very often, but I do have this YouTube channel, and that's I kind of converted it into a hybrid soap making book, whatever. So it is kind of, I guess, a unique channel in that sense, that it's just it's like a hybrid whatever. But anyway, so work on your branding during that time. If you don't want to do that, if you just want to publish this book, by all means, you don't have to do any branding whatsoever. Maybe you can tell your friends and family. Maybe you can, tell your coworkers or whatever, which is another thing I did. I did post it on LinkedIn, and I did have some coworkers. Even my boss bought the book, and it was a little embarrassing at first because I was like, oh my gosh, my boss is reading my book. But, it's all good. Anyway, so, while that is happening, work on your branding. So step 8, I also like to do this ahead of time. So if you know who you're going to submit to, whether it be Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Ingram Spark, Draft to Digital, or all 4, which is what I do, you can start the process. So, well, let me back up just a skosh. So it's a good idea to have your cover art as well. For Hillbilly Vamp, which is right here, I hired Get Covers to do that, and they turned it around in probably a few days. So if you are on a budget, I highly recommend Get Covers. That cover cost me $20, and it was perfect for what I needed it. It's a short novella. I didn't want to spend an exorbitant amount of money on a short novella, so I did that. And I had it ready. So when you're uploading things to your platforms, you do already have your cover ready. For Metaxysm, I hired a friend who did that, and it took him a little bit more time, which is perfect because, he is an artist. He's a professional artist. And so I expected that. But with that being said, depending on whether or not you go with Get Covers or a friend or someone on Fiverr or whatever you choose to do, just build in your time for that. And this could be while you have your manuscript with your editor, depending on how long your editor takes. If it's a month, that may be a good turnaround time for your cover to get done as well. But with that being said, again, working on your submittal platforms, because that also takes time. So you have, I like to kind of set it up, but don't submit it. Just set it up as a draft. And this is very, very important because I screwed this up with Amazon on Hillbilly Vamp. I accidentally submitted it as a pre-order and I didn't mean to. I meant to just save it as a draft. And so I had to go through Amazon and just be like, I'm not going to have this book ready in time for this pre-order. Can we please cancel it? And they do have consequences for doing that. They will not let you set up a pre-order for I want to say 6 months or a year. I mean, it's a crazy amount of time. So I had to have this conversation with them. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, blah, blah, blah. So they did it for me as a favor. So I still was able to set up Hillbilly Vamp as a pre-order, but that was my mistake. So anyway, set up your stuff as a draft. It is very important that you set it up as a draft. Do not submit it. If the button says submit, do not hit. But you can do this pre-work while you're waiting for your manuscript to be loaded. So if you have your cover art, if you have your blurb, which is another video in itself, if you have, all your ISBN, if you decided to buy your ISBN from Bowker, or if you just want to get a free ISBN, you can get a free ISBN from Amazon. You can get one from Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital and Barnes & Noble. But then you'll have 4 ISBNs for the same paperback, basically. You don't need an ISBN for an audiobook. You may not need one for an ebook too. Let me just say right here whether or not you have to. But anyway, there's that. So I like to work on that because it does take time. It will take me probably 2 days to set that stuff up. And that's time that is used wisely because my manuscript is out of my hands anyway. You can also take the pre-edited version of your manuscript, which is what I'm planning on doing. So while it's with my editor, I'm going to take the pre-edited version and send it off to beta readers. So I personally would just use a trusted circle of friends as your beta readers, but if you don't have a trusted circle of friends, you can always find people on Facebook that'll do it for you. There's a website called Story Origin, which I'm also a part of, where you can set up a beta read on there as well. And that is also an annual fee of $100. So that is another video that I want to talk about, and I'm not going to do it in here, but all the nickel and diming that goes on in the publishing. But again, another video. So anyway, let's move on to step 9. So after you've submitted your editor, work on your branding, and worked on your submittal platforms, so Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc., step 9 would be to receive your manuscript back. And so when this happens, I will tell you, I was terrified to get Metaxysm back because this is my first book that I've actually like hired a professional to do, and I was planning on publishing. I was afraid I was going to get it back and she was going to tear it apart and just be like, this is awful and you suck as a writer. But that is, that is a fear. But editors are generally pretty good at talking to you about your manuscript. They have what I would like to call like publishing bedside manner. So there were issues with the book, but overall she said it was great and the writing was good and all that stuff. She did fix a lot of grammatical things, which ultimately I took that advice and applied it to Hillbilly Vamp. And one of the glaring issues that I had were a lot of dangling modifiers, which in Hillbilly Vamp I had not, because I took that advice. I figured out what a dangling modifier was. And I was like, okay, yeah, I did do that a lot. My bad. I'm not going to do that again. So step 9 is to receive your manuscript. And when you receive that manuscript, then it is your job to go through all those edits. And this is step 10, is to get to editing your finished manuscript. So if you're planning this how I'm suggesting in here, you have an unedited version that's with beta readers and they're probably still reading it. You could put a deadline on when you want it back. If they don't meet that deadline, then it is what it is. But anyway, they're reading that. But you also have a manuscript that has edits in it. So I would say take those edits, and if you are getting feedback from beta readers, it's good to compare, the feedback from the editor and your beta readers. But I don't have much experience with this yet because I did not do that with either of my books. So I will keep you updated how that works for me with my new fantasy book. But anyway, so step 10 is get editing. And just to recap, we've got step 5 is just edit the thing. And this is going from draft 0 to draft 2 or 3. You can use Pro Writing Aid, Grammarly, or AutoCrit, or none. It's up to you. Step 6 is to hire an editor. Step 7 is while your manuscript is with your editor, work on your branding. And step 8 is working on submitting to the platforms. But again, like I said, if it says submit, don't hit, just save as a draft. Step 9, receive your manuscript. And then step 10, apply the changes that your editor gave you. Sorry, I'm having a brain moment. But anyway, so that is that for part 2. Part 3, I will come up with another video for that, I'm sure, because again, this is my journey and I'm just sharing it with you, and I'm still in the middle of this journey. So this is kind of what I've done so far. My fantasy series is way different, the way I'm approaching it. I have high hopes for it. At least I mean, let me put it this way. I don't have high hopes. I just am more comfortable with this process with this book than I was with these two, because I wasn't really, this is baby steps for me. This is like toddler steps. And now I'm in kind of like preteen. So I know my analogies are so weird. I've been told that before, but whatever, it works for me. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you found it informative. Like I said, I have 2 newsletters. If you want to sign up for them, I've got soap and I've got books. Yeah, I don't know if I did mention that earlier, but anyway, I do have soap and I have books. If you want to sign up for the soaps, there's a 10% off discount. If you sign up for books, you'll get, each one is monthly. The soap one is monthly, kind of, is more retail focused. The book one is more news focused. So if you want to know what my updates are for book stuff, that's the book newsletter. But also there are, offers that I put in there from other authors, that I find on Story Origin, which is another great platform to use. So I'm just, putting that out there. But anyway, I guess that's it. I'll stop rambling, and I'll make another video, part 3, about the journey. And I will see you soon. So see ya.